Little mouse error there. We've got a mouse running around, causing trouble. Hello, friends, lovers. Happy Sunday. Thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes. 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir.
Hello.
And you. We're up to episode 156. 156 times you have joined us. That's why we're best friends now. We're buds. We're family at this point. Thank you for joining us. You know, if music be the food of love, play on. Quoting, of course, the bard William Shakespeare, Twelfth Night, first line in the play. Or as Nietzsche said, Friedrich Nietzsche.
Nietzsche peachy.
Nietzsche is peachy. Without music, life would be a mistake. I'm thinking music. I am all about music today. In fact, I want to talk to you about music. I want to see you in the chat with your comments about music and dance. On this fine Sunday, May 7th. Sunday, May 7th is the 127th day of this, your best year yet. You've had 127 days to make it fantastic. I'm sure you're having the time of your life. We're going to keep it rolling. 238 days left to make this your best year. 232 days until Christmas. 7 days. 7 days. 7 days until Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. Oh, bit of a bittersweet holiday for some of us whose mothers may already be gone.
Yes. My mom left us a while back, and she took that train.
Now, if you are FOA, and we mentioned this last week, if you are FOA, Friends of Amy on Facebook, on any of the socials, feel free to reach out. If you need a little extra Mother's Day magic, we could send a card out to somebody who you're not in a position to send a card to. Or maybe you are, but you want something extra to go out. Maybe a little special, a little surprise.
I purchased some really special Mother's Day cards. And I won't tell you, I won't describe them because just in case it's a surprise, but very special cards, and I want to send them out. So,
yes. You've got a few of them, but you could get more.
If you're Facebook friends with me or contact me another way, let me know if you'd like to have a card for me to your mother, or if you're a mother yourself, if you would like to have a card, let me know.
Yes.
And I'd love to send you a Mother's Day card and adopt you, at least to some extent, viscerally for Mother's Day.
Yes. And I'm looking in the chat, see how many mothers we have watching. On YouTube, it's all dudes. It's sausage fest. Sorry for that expression, but all dudes, some of our best friends in the chat.
Yeah.
But on the Facebook side, I see the mistress of all things art, the queen of art, Linda Cordair of Cordair Fine Art, and she is in the chat, so it's kind of, your honorary mother.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
so,
she is.
Happy Mother's Day to Linda. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. If you're a mother, if you have a mother, give her a call or do something special. Do that thing. So, yes, 7 days until Mother's Day. Memorial Day is just 21 days away. How did that come to be? It's not summertime yet, and in fact, we're in Motown where it's raining today. What a spring we've had. But 21 days, be full blown. Make sure you are ready for summer. Do not miss a drop of it when it arrives. Well, the first day of summer arrives on solstice, Wednesday, June 21st. But Memorial Day is just 21 days. That's kind of the honorary beginning of summer. On this date, real quick, on this date, May 7th, 1824, Ludwig van Beethoven's Ninth and Final Symphony debuts at Vienna's Theater am Karneltor. I can't pronounce anything German. The theater, well, that might have been Austrian. Theater am Karneltor.
Karneltor?
Total fail. You think I would have practiced that before the show. Beethoven's Ninth and Final Symphony debuted. Quote, the audience acclaimed him through standing ovations 5 times. And there were handkerchiefs in the air, hats, and raised hands, so that Beethoven, who they knew could not hear the applause, remember Beethoven went deaf before he completed the Ninth Symphony, could at least see the ovations. Of course, despite his deafness, the music was in his head. He was able to compose and conduct that debut. So, a super shout out to the man, Ludwig van Beethoven. It's allergy season. I think that's what's doing it to me. Ninth and Final Symphony debuted on this date, 1824. Speaking of composers, it was also on this date that Keith Richards, in his sleep, composed the famous riff, na 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 na, to the song Satisfaction in his sleep. it's really compelling to me that there are musicians who compose in their sleep.
And
they wake up with an idea in their head.
But that song really took off after that amazing Devo cover.
Amy, of course, preferring the Devo version of Richard's Satisfaction. Yes, Jagger Richards composing team. Satisfaction, May 7th, 1965. Now, today is National Tourism Day, a day observed by the National Travel and Tourism Week in the United States, which occurs every first full week of May. First celebrated in May of 1983, as President Ronald Reagan signed a proclamation urging all citizens to observe the week. Get out of Dodge. Close the door in your workplace. Take off for a while. Well, when I saw it as National Tourism Day, the first thing I thought is, oh yeah, Rogers City, Michigan.
Yeah.
The limestone capital of the world.
It is. As a matter of fact, Rogers City is a little town on just off the Lake Huron, which in Lake Huron, of course, not just a lake, it's an ocean, as well as our other Great Lakes here on Michigan. But the city itself is like a third of the size of this largest limestone quarry in the world, which is just south of it. And it's really amazing to just kind of to drive by, and it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. But it's really amazing. I'm like, Robert, look over there. It's Howard Rourke with a jackhammer. Okay.
Yes. We're going to tell more of that story of driving up to Rogers City, driving by the quarry. I've got to say in Facebook Live that Linda Cordair points out Gerald Casale of Devo is an art connoisseur. In fact, a client of Quent Cordair Fine Art, which means right now, anybody of you who are sitting in front of a computer watching the show, you need to go to Cordair.com.
Yes.
Check out the gallery.
Yeah, Christopher on YouTube mentions John Wass. John Wass, the famous artist who you need to know and you need to appreciate, is on Cordair.com.
Yes. And was just interviewed on the Ayn Rand Center UK, which is a great crossover, Hands Across the Water. I'm not going to explain that because some people might take offense, but it was great to see John interviewed on the ARC UK. Of course, it's great to see his work at Cordair.com. It's also it is World Laughter Day. Yes. Now, the first World Laughter Day occurred on January 11th, 1998 in Mumbai, India. But then it spread, the happy-demic. I can't believe they used that word in this language after the pandemic. It was followed by Happy-demic, the first World Laughter Day celebrated outside India. That event was held in Copenhagen, Denmark, or as we say in America, Copenhagen, on January 9th, 2000, and around 10,000 people attended, putting it in the Guinness Book of World Records. How did I not know there was a Happy-demic Day with 10,000 people attending? Well, here in the United States, we'll just take it for what it is. Today, on May 7th, World Laughter Day. If you got something to laugh about it. Now, I've talked about music playlists. You should always have a playlist of music that will put you in the state you want to be in. I think it's the same thing about comedians. I think it's the same way about comics. I love online comics. Same way about anything that would bring you to that state of laughter. Let me do a quick refresh on. Oh, here we go. Facebook. Thought we might have lost our thread. Remember last week when the internet got wonky? What was up with that? So yes, enjoy World Laughter Day. And share with us in the chat, because I would love to know if there's something that makes you LOL, laugh out loud. Put it in the chat, a particular comedian, style of humor, a particular movie, whatever it may be. Share some of the laughter with us so I can look these up after the show. Finally.
By the way, speaking of laughter, I have been laughing. I think it was Friday. We were getting ready to go out to Rogers City for a flamenco gig, which we'll talk about soon. But I kept watching videos of Philomena Kunk, which is,
Philomena Kunk.
Okay, so there's a really funny lady who actually worked with Ricky Gervais, and I forget her name, Diane Morgan. So she's a comedian, an actress, and she basically is a bit of a she kind of pretends that she knows so much about history, and she interviews historians, and she wants to make history more relevant for the youth. And so she says these really hilarious things. Kind of basically being a little bit daft, as they would say in England, and just kind of idiotic in a lot of ways, and the kind of reactions that you get from these historians who she's interviewing. And I don't know if these historians are actually historians or actors, but the reactions she gets from people are just, it's phenomenally funny.
It was LOL because I heard you laughing out loud many times.
She did a little piece on the Model T, on Henry Ford, and that you can certainly look that up and get a little funny little giggle. It's really, really well done.
We'll have to add the link to the show notes, which are already chocked full to the brim full of valuable links. But we'll get that one in there as well. We've got some in the chat here too. But let me go real quick with the happy birthdays today. Happy birthday to Robert Browning, of course, the husband of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, but a magnificent poet in his own right. And his birthday today in 1812. Lived to be 77, substantially longer than his wife did. But yes, one of the great poets. But I want to jump right to the two other birthdays we celebrate today. On May 7th, in 1833, Johannes Brahms. Well, folks will know when we did our episode called I've Seen All Good People a few weeks ago, link in the show notes, we just got back from the night before seeing Brahms' Fourth Symphony, performed by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. All those good people. And that was magnificent. There's a link in the show notes there to that episode. And also, besides being Brahms' birthday, it's Tchaikovsky's birthday.
Yay!
Yes, Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky, born on this date in 1840, so just 7 years later. And he was not as long-lived as Brahms was. But yes, the great man Tchaikovsky. We're in a music mode. I am absolutely in a music mode. Real quick, as far as other videos this week, I did do one with James Valiant. Link is in the show notes, Penetrating the Culture. So this is one for the objectivists, talking about philosophy, philosophic ideas, objectivist ideas, Ayn Rand's ideas, penetrating the culture, having an impact. Watch that if you have any pessimism about how much impact objectivism has had, how much impact it's going to have. Good episode, if I do say so myself. But no, I want to jump right back to music and dance. Amy, as you said, we went up to Rogers City, Michigan.
Yes, that is about here, near the tip, not quite at the tip of the mitten, but
on your hand. Oh, right, because Michigan is shaped like your hand.
Yes, here we are, and then you drive 4.5 hours up.
That's only like 3.5 inches. Why would it take that long?
And then you finally land around here.
Rogers City, Michigan was fun. Small town, small city.
Great. It was great. It was settled originally by the French, and so you have a lot of French influences in the city. It's a small town. There's only I think less than 3,000 people living in it.
The Limestone Quarry, for which it is famous, is larger than the city itself. If you look at it on Google Earth, you will see what I mean.
Yes.
And if you want to see some pictures of what we did up there, you can go to facebook.com/Robert Nasir, and you will see a few of the photographs of the setting. Now, eventually I'm going to be posting photographs of what we actually did and video, because Amy, you danced.
I danced and I presented.
Yes.
I answered questions. I talked about all sorts of things, the history of flamenco, and that was in conjunction with our intrepid leader, Michelle, who also talked about flamenco dance and demonstrated castanets, and I demonstrated the shawl a little bit and the fans, the hand fans for flamenco. And yeah, it was great fun. It was a lot of improv. It was a lot of jazz riffing. And that made it a little bit more stressful, but
it's more fun that way, too.
In a way, it is.
Well, to those of us watching, anyway. And it was a 2-day event. So the first day that we drove up, you gave a demonstration to Spanish students of the local high school.
They were probably about I think 15 to maybe 17 years old. They didn't look like 18-year-olds. They looked a little younger.
Looked like freshmen and sophomores, yeah.
Yeah, and so they were really nice. They were, some of them were clowning around, but that's cool. I kind of like it. A couple of ladies came up and young ladies, they were wearing combat boots. I'm like, okay, that's
Gotta love
awesome.
that.
And most of them stayed on the stage. Some of them, it just became too difficult for them, and they didn't have a background in dance. The shyest one, she was so shy, she didn't even want to reveal what her name was. And but I saw her, and we did some warm-ups, and we did some stretching beforehand, which some of the kids were able to do pretty easily, some of them not. But some of them just stuck it out, and I complimented everybody on their perseverance, on getting up there and at least trying it out. So it was great fun, and I really enjoyed the kids. And honestly, by the time we were done with teaching some dance steps to these teenagers, they were really hyper focused, and they were really, we kind of sucked them in and got them interested. And so yeah, it was really a lot of fun. It was great fun, and I really enjoyed meeting all the good kids there, and even some of the bad ones. So
Yes, well, high school kids, you get the mix. But that was day one, and then day two was the actual performance at the Rogers City Theater. Great theater.
yes.
Oh, what a great building.
It's sort of like we down in around our area. There's the Redford Theater, which is just a beautiful 1929 former vaudeville theater. They renovated it to look like it did in the 1930s. It's just a beautiful place, and they're renovating there in Rogers City.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Rogers City Theater.
And that theater is maybe a third of the size, but it's got that same sense of history about it.
Yeah.
It's got great acoustics.
Oh, the acoustics
audio in there
are
was
great.
beautiful.
Oh, so good.
What a great venue. If it wasn't 4.5 hours drive every time you go there, I would
Go there a little
go
more
back
often.
more often, and be a great place to throw a karaoke party.
Yeah, which we tried to do, but that didn't work at the time.
Well,
But
couldn't shoehorn that into
schedules
one
conflicted.
overnight.
But we were up for it if they would have let us. And it was just great fun. The Lady Anne, she was like the mayor of Rogers City. She knew everybody. She was such a go-getter. She had her own film company. She's a librarian. She is a historian. She works with the theater. She is kind of like the booking agent for this theater. I mean, she does everything.
She does everything.
What don't you do? And she was such a go-getter and so energetic. I just loved her.
And among other things, the event was organized through the Presque Isle District Library, where she is a librarian and an administrator.
Yeah.
And it was actually a paying gig.
Show the ticket.
There were sponsors, and there's the tickets to the event.
Yes.
I think we even have the flyer here.
Oh yeah, the program. We had a program.
We'll hold that up there.
That's so nice.
There's the front of the program, printed in color. It says Compañeros de Flamenco, Saturday, May 6, 2023, 2 p.m.
Yep.
Performers are listed, and this is interesting because Michelle, Laura, Amy, Kuniko, Lalita, who couldn't actually make it this time, Ritsoko, and Robert Nasir. I'm not a performer. Why am I in there?
You're the sound guy.
I was the sound guy.
Yes.
So yeah, as I've mentioned online, my role was to set up all the equipment and then make it do what it does, and then tear it all down.
So good.
But that's very generous that they put my name in there. Flamenco is the music of Spain. The colorful costumes, compelling guitar music, and intricate footwork tell the story of Spain's multicultural heritage. Flamenco developed as a folkloric tradition in southern Spain beginning nearly 500 years ago with the arrival of the Gitanos, the Spanish Romani, and with Andalusian influences stemming back to the Phoenician and Roman eras. Sounds like you might have written this. I know you've
No,
told
actually,
everybody.
I did not. I don't know who wrote that.
Well,
It was probably Anne.
Yes. Anyway, great fun.
Or Michelle. But it was great fun, and it was one of those things where you go up, you don't know what to expect, you do not know what the stage looks like, you don't know if it's rubberized, if it's carpeted, how big it is, what the acoustics of it is. You have no clue. You don't know even if there's already an audio system set up for you or not. In this case, there wasn't. And Robert, you saved the day, and you had all the equipment.
We always have a full PA system wherever we go.
It sounded so good, and on top of that, we've got a little monitor speaker on the side so the dancers can hear the music. Obviously, that's important. And the stage was big. We had like a pretty red curtain going on behind us and on the sides of us. And like I say, it was a beautiful stage. Our footwork sounded very nice on the floor. Turning was easy. What else? It was just a very nice thing, also because we were so very familiar with the stage. In teaching some of the dance steps to the teenagers on Friday, we were able to come back on Saturday morning, do a little prep work, and be more familiar and a little bit more, at ease with the venue. And it was really lovely. Everybody was so welcoming. We got great questions from the audience. We had people coming up to us afterwards. People were very much interested. And people do not know, but they will, about, they just don't know anything about flamenco. They've kind of seen it a little bit. They might pronounce it as, the bird. So, you mean flamenco?
You gotta dance with one leg up?
No, flamenco. And so it was a really wonderful educational experience. You're just not going to see flamenco dance and music, or singing, or just, casually around, unless you say live in Florida, New Orleans, Texas, or California. That's where flamenco is more well known. But here in the Midwest, you just don't see it. So you have to explain it. So for each dance, I would come up and I would explain a little bit about it, about the particular things that we're using in the dance, and what was going to happen. So it was nice. It was very well received, and our audience was about 100 people. So it was pretty good.
Good. Very good for community theater. Very nice. And everybody had a great time. Some comments in the chat here just that I have to mention because Apollo Zeus says he loves to dance and believes that all young people should learn the dance without being self-conscious about it. I absolutely agree with that. Unfortunately, I was one of those young people who didn't. I vaguely remember in phys ed, in gym class, they had everybody try line dancing at one point. Didn't really get it at the time. So Shameless Riley asks if I dance, and the answer is rarely and not well. Amy and I have actually taken dance classes at Arthur Murray, but we are overdue to go back and resume those lessons because Lord knows I need more of that. So the answer to your question is a little, someday much more. Working on that. And Seamus says he's taken some classes, but his skills are lacking. See, that's me. That's totally me. Keep up with it. At least get to the point where you can swing somebody around on a dance floor when you need to. Absolutely. As Apollo suggests, I think there's a minimum level that's kind of morally required, or at least pragmatically required. And the guitarist Christopher Smith is quoting Aristotle, "Dance like no one's watching." I'm suspicious of that quote.
I think he was referring to the Philomena Kunk in her show.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. She basically throws all these things out there, and very, very seriously, in a very deadpan way, in such almost in such a convincing way. You don't know at first if she's actually joking. But you'll find a rhythm in her humor.
Except
she's really brilliant.
That her name is Philomena Kunk. So
Diane Morgan is her real name.
Right.
You can actually watch her on Afterlife, which is a show by Ricky Gervais. And
I did not know there was a connection there.
Yes, she played, I think, in the last season. She was in there before too. But yeah, she's really, really fun to watch. I'll just say that.
Chandler is giving his approval to the idea of combat boots and a dress.
Yes, as a matter of fact, when I wasn't a dress that I was wearing at the time, but I did wear combat boots with my graduation gown.
Yes, you did.
From high school. When I went up to the superintendent
and refused to shake his hand.
Refused to shake his hand. I'm like,
Did you refuse to shake hands with your dean or superintendent when you got your graduation event?
Because at that time, I knew, and I was pretty clear in my mind that public schools were a scam. Okay, so at least for the most part, some great teachers, of course, work there, and very proud of them. But a lot of it's very scammy. So But yeah, there was actually the young lady. Her name was Ashley. She was the shyest one. I was actually saying that she was wearing combat boots and she was wearing a dress, as a matter of fact, but she was very shy. But later I found out she was actually dancing really well. And then she revealed to me later that, yes, she did actually take 4 years of ballet.
Oh.
So she was a little bit more in tune with the process. So
A little better armed for such a thing. Yeah, Christopher Smith, the guitarist, says, I mean, the Greeks were not stupid. I think he's going back to the Aristotle comment. Music, dancing, essential. Come on. Good for the soul. Purpose, happiness, intellect, emotions. Well, he's practically given us the whole show there. So everybody have a great day. Oh, no, wait, we have a little bit more to say than that. But, yeah, Christopher Smith says, flamenco is like a philosophy of life.
Well,
it is certainly a sense of life. Yeah.
Because when I was saying, most people don't know about it, but they will soon. That's also goes in with objectivism. So
That's right. We're going to get both of those out there.
Objectivism, bunnies. We're all rooting for things that people still have yet to discover.
Yes. And we mentioned flamenco in a brief history, and Christopher says, the birth of the guitar as we know it. I'm sure there was a parallel development there. The lyre, of course, has been around forever, but the six-string guitar, and especially with frets, that is all fairly recent and part of what makes life worth living. There was one more here I needed to get to. Oh, Linda Cordair on Facebook says, we'll be ARC UK sponsors soon. That's cool. They've talked about on ARC UK how they're now doing sponsors, and they had one show that was sponsored. I don't know. I wonder how many resources you have to throw at them to call it a sponsored show. Maybe I should do one of those. Sponsored by 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
I like that too, actually.
I'm good with that. So we're thinking music and dance. Now, I mentioned last week my favorite rock band. I know we did a show on Rush on my Thursday show, and I love Rush. But my favorite rock band is the band Yes. Mm-hmm. And there's a bass player out there who plays bass the way Yes's bass player did, as a big fan. And he'll do videos where he plays along with songs. A gentleman named Miguel Falcao plays the bass lines of Chris Squire, the bass player of Yes. And every year he does a tribute to Chris Squire. This is the 9th one this year since Chris's passing. And I'm going to work on that. I may have even mentioned what I was going to do, but maybe not. I've decided I'm going to play the sort of newsroom theme from the song Perpetual Change. I might be the only person who thinks of that as a newsroom theme, but it seems like the kind of music you would hear every time they show a busy newsroom.
I see that.
Yeah. Well, that's the opening.
Yeah.
But no, I'm actually thinking of the theme in the middle, the very busy. It's a section that's in 7/8. It's kind of fast.
It's a great section.
And then the chorus theme kind of fades in on it after a few bars. That is what I'm going to play for Chris.
Nice. Oh, good luck.
And as I've mentioned before, and I'll post this online so y'all can see how good it is or bad it is. We'll see how that goes. Chris Squire stuff's not easy to play. But there is a crossover to the Rush episode. If you saw Yes being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Chris Squire no longer being with us, they needed a bass player. They played 2 songs during the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The first one they played was Owner of a Lonely Heart. And because Yes has had 2 different guitar players over their tenure, what they did is they had Steve Howe, the earlier guitar player, play bass, while Trevor Rabin played guitar for Owner of a Lonely Heart. But for the older song, where Steve was the bass player, how could I mix that up? My tongue is twisted today. It's the allergy medication. Sorry about the antihistamines. Where Steve Howe was the guitar player, they had, as bass player, Geddy Lee of Rush. Mm-hmm. So there's your Rush connection there. And Geddy Lee has talked about how Chris Squire of Yes was a major inspiration for him as a bass player. We'll talk about putting your money where your mouth is. Yes needs a bass player to play Roundabout in their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and Geddy Lee does it. That was super cool. So I will be doing the play for Chris. I'm going to try to play the fast riff from Perpetual Change. We'll see if I can pull that one off. And what I'm wondering from you is, well, not only what would you play on a tribute to a band that you like, but I'm talking about music here, and I want to know songs that get you going. Like what song makes you turn up the radio or your stereo as soon as you hear the first few notes?
Well, I can answer that, but
Yes.
before we do, I just want to get to the chat here real quick.
Yes.
First of all, Paulo says, from what I know and I've seen, flamenco, it projects a positive sense of life, and Chris talks about some people call it the flamenco. Flamenco is the blues of Spain. In a way, yes. In a way, no. It depends on what the song is and what we're trying to portray.
See, I especially appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I'm always drawn to music in major keys.
Yes.
Most flamenco music is not in a major key.
Yeah, not a lot of it. But...
And I've wondered, why are they so sad, or why are they so mournful all the time? But I used to think the same thing about blues music. And now, of course, I love the blues. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned to appreciate over time is that flamenco isn't sad or angry or malevolent. It's passionate.
Mm-hmm. It's what's the word again? Duende and let me.
I've heard the word, but I don't know what it means.
It basically means the kind of passion you feel whether you're in love or you're grieving someone who died. It's that kind of extreme emotion. And that is what flamenco is trying to portray. Now, you may have heard us talk about flamenco as a way of coping. It's sort of, like the blues. It is a coping music or coping art form. And you'll hear the kind of, let's see, I guess Moorish or Middle Eastern influences in the singing. Kind of...
well, certainly in the microtonal aspects of the singing.
Yes.
These quarter notes and...
Right.
Not quarter notes, but quarter tones.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to sing that way right now.
No.
But
I'm always a quarter tone off anyway.
But I mean the people of Andalusia, all the different, from the Gypsies to the Jewish people to the Moors and the Middle Eastern people, all kind of congregating down there. A lot of, like, for instance, Jewish people were exiled out of Spain, with and other people who were not in the majority Catholic religion. So you've got people down there who are just coming together and creating an art form and a dance and festivals and family get-togethers where they teach young children how to dance and sing and play guitar. And then basically, so it's not in the south of Spain, it's not necessarily a situation where you're going to go to, Miss Tina's Dance Academy studio to learn flamenco, like you would for tap dance or ballet or something like that. You're going to learn it in your family, and that's going to be passed down to younger generations, and then you get a big group of your family together, and you play the songs and you sing, and people get up and dance and they improvise. So it's a very interesting culture.
Right. And before we get canceled, what Amy meant by gypsies are the Romany nomads.
Yeah, originally from India.
I'm joking, but yeah, gypsy is actually now considered a slur.
Well, in some areas, yes. In some areas, no.
And the strange thing
both
is,
ways.
Like many of these words, you're allowed to use the word if you're using it about yourself. I'm a gypsy, but you're not allowed to say, she's a gypsy.
From the way that I describe it as a historical context, of course.
Yes, I'm kidding.
I know.
But I mean, I know there are people who take that seriously, and if you do, more power to you.
Well, you can't take it too seriously, since it's International Laughter Day.
That's right.
Right.
Damn straight.
Yes.
So.
Oh, and one other thing before we get to music that we really love. Apollo mentions in there, and Chris, about flamenco dance. I should say this like I did yesterday at Rogers City Theater. In the audience there was a gentleman who asked us about men doing flamenco dance. And I'll tell you, if you want to get the ladies, learn flamenco dance. If you have a proclivity to knowing how to dance in any way, shape, or form, learn flamenco dance. And it's it's really, if you really want to make yourself attractive as a man, learn that dance, because it's
It's the one thing we could do to make our performances better is when I start dancing, except I'd have to learn to dance first. And,
you're already my trophy husband. You don't need to learn to do a flamenco dance.
now, in answer to the question, what song, when you first hear it
Yes.
start, makes you crank your stereo up? Not only did, I got to scroll back here, did Lisa Carnahan say, Where the Streets Have No Name? That's one where as soon as you hear that guitar with the rhythmic echo on it, and then, you just crank that up. The Edge is so good with a delay pedal. He's just the best.
He's excellent. And I'm actually listening to Surrender, which is the kind of biography of Bono and U2. So it's interesting, but I'll tell you what, the song that gets me...
Gets you to crank it up?
Not just crank it up.
Oh, but it just gets you.
But it reaches into my soul and tears my heart out. It basically, but in a good way, is U2's The Unforgettable Fire. It's a song that I don't know if some people don't like, whatever, who cares? But I love that song. It is a extremely powerful and meaningful song to me. It chokes me up, but in the best way possible, and it's just the best.
Yeah, so if you're somewhere where you can listen to a song real loud and all the way through, listen to the Unforgettable Fire by U2. Prior to that, when we mentioned Chris Squire, Jupiter Man has said, Fish Out of Water is excellent. I agree with that, and it's also one of those albums where you put it on, and for me, it just gets louder the further you get into it. And by the time I'm playing the final song, a song called Safe, I'm just cranking it up and cranking it up and cranking it up. It's a progressive rock canon. In fact, the subtitle is Canon Song. And it is just a beautiful piece which features a bass guitar player as the lead instrument. Good stuff. And yeah, let us know any other songs that make you... In fact, the other category that relates to this for me are songs which, if you listen to them while you're driving, are almost certain to result in a speeding ticket. For people in my generation, that would be like Golden Earrings, Radar Love. When that comes on your car stereo, that's when you find out how loud your car stereo can go, and when you've really got to watch how fast you're driving. So I'd be interested to know that as well. Feel free to share those songs, because we did a whole episode. Link to it is actually in the show notes, an episode called Tears of Splendor, What's Your Overwhelm? Mm-hmm. And I absolutely recommend this to each and every one of you out there, that you have a list, in this case for music, a playlist of songs that get you, that hit you hard in the chest, songs that make you either sit up straighter, open your eyes wider, or bring the tears to your eyes, whatever it is that really gets you going and that you can call on anytime you need to bring yourself into that heightened state. But what was fun about last night was dance can do that too, and you have music as well with the dance that can give you that state of joy, that state of ecstasy that I think we all need more of.
Yes. Those
moments that make you think, this is worth living for. This life is an end in itself.
And I should say, I have been practicing that. We just mentioned that kind of passion that you find in flamenco. It's duende, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's D-U-E-N-D-E, duende.
Duende.
It's that kind of hard to explain passion, that something that emotion that a dancer, singer, or a guitarist in flamenco exudes, it projects, performs, and it's a passion. Like I say, the best thing I've heard in terms of describing it is that emotion that you get either while you're deeply in love or mourning a death. those that level, that deep level of emotion. And I was trying to kind of exude that yesterday. Maybe I did a little bit. I don't know. Did I? I don't know. I
Yes.
was trying to be a little bit more passionate with my dance, and
if you've seen clips, if you've already seen clips of Compañeros de Flamenco dancing, And they're often routines. They're choreographed ahead of time. And yesterday you could sense people were breaking free a little bit from that, and especially Amy.
Good.
Willing to sort of test the boundaries of what synchronization was all about. In fact, the leader, Michelle Millman, even did a solo, which was great to see.
Yes, and I encourage the audience to call out whenever they felt passion, if they were affected or inspired by the dancer or their music, to yell out "Ole," and I had all the audience kind of repeat after me, and they got used to it early, and it was really a lovely thing. That's something I introduced to the group. And we're getting used to the idea of kind of expressing more emotion, more passion, and also pride for each other as dancers, which I think is especially important. And I think that came through yesterday.
Yes. Great notes in the chat here. Unsigned 32-bit says, thank you for helping me understand why I so much like Where the Streets Have No Name. We didn't get too much into it, but what's fascinating about that song to me is it's all about feel. The harmonic structure, for those of you who know music, it's just a 1-4-6-5 song. It's just a 4-chord song. But the melody that is put over the top of that, in addition to the way the guitar is played, brilliant use of the delay on that, those echoes that you hear each time a note is struck. But the melody, when they go to the second chord, the 4-chord, but Bono is singing, 5, 4, 3, 1, what you might sing over the root or a 5. The point is that he is bringing passion to it, and it's not obvious, and it's not easy, and it makes it sound exciting. It makes it sound heartfelt. It's not just what you would throw out there if you weren't thinking much about it. So yes, unsigned 32-bit individualist, I absolutely share your passion for that song, and for several U2 songs that are done in that style. Joyous, very benevolent, but also very passionate. And Christopher Smith is giving a lot of great recommendations. He does say, Les Miserables wrecks me. I'll never watch it again. There was a thread that came up recently. What are films that you loved, but that you can never bring yourself to watch a second time? And those certainly fit that category of what's your overwhelm. We've got a couple of DVDs and Blu-rays that are brand new in packages, still with shrink wrap on them, because we saw the movie in the theater. It was so good. And we know we want to watch it again, and we haven't been able to bring ourselves to watch it again.
Yeah, we that's actually Whiplash. We saw
Whiplash. We still have new in the box.
Yeah, and we saw that in the theater, loved it, and then we can't get we can't
get in the right state of mind to
in the right emotional state.
It's like, let's put ourselves through that again. It's so good, and it's worth going through, but we haven't gotten ourselves to do it again.
Yeah.
And Christopher Smith brings up a couple we all know, like Tom Sawyer by Rush, but there's a bunch here I've never heard of. So I am looking forward to looking some of those up. Excellent there.
Yeah. Jupiter mentions, a lot of Yes music, including Drama, which is it's a very interesting 80s version of Yes without the original lead singer, John Anderson.
This is true.
But Trevor Horn does a good job, and I love what they did. I love what Steve Howe and especially Chris Squire, what they did with that music. So good.
Anybody who says, Yes is no good anymore because John Anderson's not the lead singer, whatever you think about Yes right now, maybe you think they're no good, but it's not because John Anderson's not the singer. Drama without John Anderson. Yeah, magnificent album. Powerful stuff.
Tempest Fugit.
Yes. And if you want to know what that particular chemistry of those 5 musicians did, listen to the second Buggles album, where Trevor Horn, the same lead singer, put together a second Buggles album, which includes the original versions of some of the same songs on Drama. So the song Into the Lens was originally a song that Trevor Horn wrote with Jeff Downes called I Am a Camera.
Yeah.
And the version that they do as kind of a plastic pop song, which was their whole idea of the Buggles, it's kind of cutesy, but it is nothing like the Yes version.
Right.
So, yes, great album, Drama by Yes. If you're a Yes fan but you've never heard the album, if you were hesitant because John Anderson's not on it, give it a listen. Great stuff. So, yes, as I've shared before, and link is in the show notes, I do keep a playlist of important songs, the kind of songs that can get me so fired up, I'm ready to go out there and kick ass. Or songs that can get me so passionate that the tears are in my eyes and I'm ready to do anything for anyone. Or, well, there's whole categories on there. It's not so important that you know what my playlist has got on it, although you can look at it if you want to see what that looks like, but that you have one of your own that you can call on whenever you need to manage your state. It's amazing how music can do that so directly.
I don't know if you've been to Facebook for the chat, but we've got some
let me go
lovely
back
things
there,
here.
see if I missed anything.
Yeah, oh my goodness. All right, so I've been missing all of these here.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Linda has chimed in, and she did remind us that Gerald Casale is a customer of Quent Cordair Fine Art.
Yes.
I may not be getting the live updates. I haven't seen anything in a few minutes.
Oh,
here,
you'll need to refresh because I have a lot.
Okay.
So, Linda mentions Elton John and Queen, and especially Don't Stop Me Now. And
James and Rob are in.
Yeah. Hello there.
Yeah,
Hello there,
brothers
Jimmy
in
Rob.
spirit.
Yay.
I don't know, maybe they really are brothers and we just don't know it.
I think they are brothers. And maybe they don't know it yet. They probably do.
Love seeing their banter online. I know Rob was off Facebook for a while because he's a busy man. He's a businessman. He's got things to do. But it's always great when Rob and James engage.
Oh, but with regard to flamenco singing, yes, Islamic call to prayer is
that's where you're going to hear those microtones. It ain't all sharps and flats.
Yeah, I would say that flamenco singing is a lot nicer than Islamic call to prayer, but that is the idea. Yes. Yeah, I totally get that. Linda Cordair, you're right. Elton John and Queen, which I love stealing when I sit at the piano and try to bat out the chords of pop songs. Elton John songs are so good for that. And Queen as well, although the way that Freddie Mercury plays piano is challenging. You've really got to like the Black Keys, which I do. Oh. But as far as songs in unusual keys, try doing Bohemian Rhapsody and you'll see it's not a guitar player's song, despite Brian May's great guitar solos on Bohemian Rhapsodies. You have to wonder when Freddie Mercury presented that to him, like, can't part of it be in E or A or C or D or G or something that's not, A flat, G flat, F sharp. Good stuff. Good Lots
stuff. Just takes a little longer to learn on the piano.
Yeah.
If you are a guitar player. That's all. That's all I'm saying. James Valiant points out Digital Man. I mentioned that on our Rush episode with that I did with Jennifer Lionberger. That I love Digital Man and Analog Kid being both on the same album too. Analog Kid, like Tom Sawyer, is just a joyous song for young men, that young women, that anybody any age can love. Yeah, and Glenn Boyer says, I used to like Triumph. The first couple albums where they hit it big, songs like Magic Power, as cheesy as that song is, it still brings tears to my eyes. Great stuff. And even some of their struggle songs, Fight the Good Fight was great, but especially songs like Hold On, the real joyous stuff. Triumph could do heavy metal joy. That was cool. So thanks for reminding me of that, Glenn Boyer, in the chat there. And Rob Flitton's Soundcrackers are Barracuda.
Yeah.
Now that's one of my favorites. Barracuda by heart.
Well, it's I love that song to pieces, but it's one of those songs that I get up on karaoke.
Ooh, that's
and
tough.
It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so difficult. So I promise myself I need to practice that song.
Yeah. He also mentions Black Dog, of course. Yeah. Hey, Hey Mama, Said the Way You Move. Red Barchetta by Rush. That's one of those ones, too, that's likely to get you a traffic ticket. And usually tunes from the 70s. Well, I'm a 70s guy. 70s and 80s, that's my jam. That are now being played on the overheads in the supermarkets. Just don't call them oldies. Thank you very much for that.
Find a different name. I don't know, like The Best Music.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Well, classic rock still fits.
Yeah, for that. Yeah.
Because you occasionally see stuff from the 90s called classic rock, but classic rock was really a name for a genre, for an era.
Right.
AOR used to be the term album-oriented rock, meaning songs you would occasionally hear on FM radio, but they weren't pop songs, they weren't singles.
Yeah.
They were album-oriented rock, and that was cool.
But please don't call Duran Duran oldies.
No, there was a word for that, a name for that, and it was New Wave.
Yes.
And, New Wave New Wave went back to the 70s. The first Cars album was 1978.
Yeah.
To me, that was the beginning of New Wave.
Yeah.
And then the second British Invasion, which, Duran Duran were totally the stars of. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And then the third one started with Oasis, so that would have been early 90s. But, there's a word for the 90s, which was grunge. Okay, it wasn't all grunge, but...
Wasn't all grunge. There was some interesting music in the 90s.
I don't know if the...
Some of it was... I'll just say I won't say anything, because if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Well, it's easy to be prejudiced about the 90s because of grunge and shoegaze and...
Well, it wasn't just that.
Emo
and I'll just say this, very respect to all the kind of grunge music, very respectfully... I think that a lot of that stuff started in the early to mid 80s with a band, Husker Du. Look this up. And Husker Du is a great band, absolutely groundbreaking. And, I'll just say that their sound was, there was a lot of imitation as a form of flattery going on in the 90s. A lot of people, were inspired by Husker Du, and they made their sound like Husker Du, and then they came out and they were Nirvana and other grunge bands like that.
But
so when it came out and became mainstream, I'm like, this isn't new.
See, some of my favorite music is in the 90s. It's just hard to remember it.
I know.
But just like with the 70s, say you're a 70s guy, or you're an 80s guy, but we'll go to the 70s. Look up the top 40 from any given month of any given year in the 1970s. Those of you who love the 70s the way I do. And you will be surprised about some of the absolute dreck that was there. And then do the same with any given month and any given year in the 90s. And you will find some great music, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot that was 90s. That's not even 90s. That doesn't count as 90s music. So, we have a sense of an era, but there's great music throughout.
I'll tell you. So Rob on Facebook here, he says, do a show on great Canadian bands, surprisingly long list. And that's absolutely true.
Yes.
Because one of those bands includes one of my favorite
What's
rock, jazz fusion, hardcore bands.
All right, I know who that is then.
No Means No.
No Means No.
All one word, No Means No. Look them up. They are exceptional. And they are hardcore, the hardest core, the hardest of all hardcore.
They're somewhat inaccessible, so you need a very open mind.
Yes.
Yes.
They're an acquired taste, of course. I mean, you too can be an acquired taste, as a matter of fact, as I've recently learned. But yeah. It's,
and Rob Flinton says, do a show on great Canadian bands long list. That's a great idea.
Well, that's what I just said.
Well, yeah. But what I mean is, if we did that show,
yeah, I know,
it would be more than just, I know you've got several punk rock bands that you could add to that list.
Yes.
But for me, one of the funnest things about Canadian bands is that they're discoveries that you make. One of my favorite bands, one of my absolute top favorite bands, and just for 3 albums that they did, they only did 5 albums, is a band called Hot Hot Heat, of a Canadian band. When they were good, they were unbelievably good.
Yeah.
One of the most unappreciated rock bands ever. So look up Hot Hot Heat, and their 2 greatest albums, Elevator and Happiness Limited. And these albums are just all killer, no filler, and they were doing things that were straightforward rock and pop rock, but that nobody else was doing the way they were doing them. So yes, I would love to do a whole show on great Canadian bands. And there's a few quirky ones, Canadian bands, Kim Mitchell, Gopher Soda. What the hell was that? And yet it's one of my favorite songs ever. So, yeah, whole show, Canadian bands. I could totally do that. That would be fun. Kim Mitchell, I think he produced Rush on an album or 2, or at least worked with them.
Nice. Kim, as in a gentleman. Yeah.
Gentleman Kim, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting more suggestions. Oh, the Guess Who, of course, Bryan Adams. April Wine. I forgot they were Canadian.
Yeah.
April Wine, it's funny because I loved them from the first album when the song Roller hit the air. And then they got kind of pop, and I'm like, I don't know. Don't know if I still love them because they're successful now. No, it just seemed to make them a little less interesting, but great band, great musicians. Max Webster, a name that comes up a lot when you talk about Rush, but that's one of the bands I need to investigate more. Absolutely. So, yeah, great stuff from the Great White North. Of course, Great White North makes me think of Geddy Lee guesting on the comedy album.
Rob says you're showing your strong music chops. Yes.
Yeah.
Between Robert and I, we know just about everything.
Well, where are we at here? It's been more than 5 minutes, and
Yes.
we could talk about music forever.
We could talk about it forever.
And the only point I wanted to make, celebrating Amy's performance,
Yay!
flamenco dance last night.
Ole!
I'm thinking the only thing that could make her troupe better, I'd like to see more improvisation.
I do too,
You're great at synchronized, but I'd love to see just more.
Yes, I know.
more
Just go
screw it around.
wild, just
Have a good time. But the other thing that you need, and those of you who've seen flamenco will know this, is you'll see flamenco troops dancing with recorded music, but you'll also see them with live music. And I love seeing live music.
Yes.
We don't have a guitar player right now. We don't have a singer right now.
Yeah, on my wish list is improvisation, work with a guitarist, work with a singer, and just do more of what we're doing. So.
And I can hear some of you out there thinking or even saying the same thing that Michelle, the leader of this troupe, said, which is, well, Robert, you're a guitar player. Why don't you learn some flamenco songs? It turns out playing flamenco guitar is hard. It is beyond my current skill set. So I have in mind actually to learn a couple songs that I could do. So even if we don't find a guitar player very soon, we could at least have partially live music and partially recorded music. So I will work on that. But if you know, any of you out there know any guitarists who are capable of flamenco style playing, who are anywhere near Motown, near Southeast Michigan, please shout them out, put us in touch, and that would be great too. Excellent. So thank you for joining us. We're all about music and dance. We've got an event coming up later today that is all about music. The Dexter Symphony Orchestra. This is an orchestra in the small town of Dexter, Michigan, has put together this great orchestra, just top notch. And they are going to be presenting Holst today, The Planets. And that's going to be great. There's also going to be a solo piece on alto saxophone.
Alto saxophone, that's what I play, but I'm not playing in this.
Yes, no, it's going to be a young man who apparently is still in high school, but he's a prodigy, and he's going to be playing as well. That's why 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir had to be a little early today, so thank you. So many people in the chat, so many people. Greatly appreciated that you stuck with us, even though we did the show early this week. We will be posting it as usual on all the podcast platforms, so those of you who listen to it afterward will be like, oh, it wasn't at the usual time? I don't know. So that is available to you as well. But thank you for joining us. Again, we're all about this week, music, dance. Encourage you to do the same. I'm not going to give you any homework assignments this week. I don't have a Post-it note for the week ready this week because we're not at our usual time. We got to run. We got to get off to the Dexter Symphony Orchestra to watch a good friend, I think one of our best friends, play oboe with the orchestra. Look them up if you're in Michigan, anywhere near Michigan, if you love symphonic music or just watching local musicians be unusually awesome. And thank you for joining us. We will be back next Sunday, the usual time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, for another episode of 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. In the meantime, we wish you every success that you so richly deserve. Make sure that you are getting everything you deserve out of life, and if it's other people who are responsible for that not happening, I know only so much you can do. But the important thing is that you are giving yourself everything you deserve. Linda is in the house, so she knows Quent Cordair says, one does not deserve to be one's own harshest critic without also being one's own most devoted fan. Unquote. I want you to be your own most devoted fan. In the meantime, Amy and I are your most devoted fans, or at least we're on the list. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. We wish you every happiness, every success, and as always, we wish